Back in on Undisputed, and our next guest is one of the greatest receivers of all time, a 7-time Pro Bowler who was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2014. Also a Buffalo Bills legend who played 15 seasons with the team, appearing in 4 Super Bowls. We welcome Andre Reed to the program. That is a much better intro than Jason McIntyre got, by the way.
I like
He's a Hall of Famer.
That's good stuff. That's right. I love it.
Are you ready to get into it?
Dressed better than McIntyre, too.
Sharp.
Yeah, I had Greg.
No, that's not hard.
Exactly. We're receivers, but we know how to do it. We know how to do it.
Andre, you ready to impart your wisdom on us?
Of course.
Drop some knowledge? All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about one of your former teammates. First up here, we can count Andrew Luck as a fan of the Colts hiring Frank Reich as their new head coach. Yesterday, he said that he wants to learn from Reich. Reich had his intro press conference earlier this week and praised Luck, calling him one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Despite Luck missing his entire season after shoulder surgery, he seems very optimistic about Reich coming to Indy. Take a listen to what he had to say.
How does Frank's approach, picking up the pace on offense, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, it sounds great. I know, all the best offenses that I've been a part of in my career, we've not been static, and we've attacked, and I'm sure he'll have a great flavor, and we'll involve as many people as we can, and attacking defense is what it's all about. You can learn something from everybody, and certainly all our history shapes so much of how we think and the thought process, and I'm really excited to hear his thought process and how he did it as a player and how he's seen other players do it and how he's done it as a coach. And I think that can have a very positive impact on our team.
All right, Andre, you know Frank very well. Can he resurrect Luck's career?
There's no doubt about it. I think, Frank is a student of the game, and people don't realize during those no-huddle years when we had the no-huddle, and if you look at offenses now, there's an element of a no-huddle in every single offense. But Frank, student of the game, actually Jim Kelly, really didn't. He called the plays, but he confided with Frank more than anybody. He was more of an offensive coordinator a lot of times. And then, obviously, the comebacks, the greatest comeback of all time. Yeah, that's what I was
Well, Frank Reich has 2 of them.
He has 2 of them. College and pro.
I mean, you were huge in that game, too.
Yeah, and I think what he's going to do in Indianapolis, he's going to let those guys go. Of course, having a healthy Andrew Luck is going to be very important. T.Y. Hilton has to get back to that Pro Bowl status again. And who knows if Frank Gore is going to play another year or 2. I mean, I think someday he'll be a Hall of Famer. He's kind of one of those guys that has all these yards, you don't even know it. And he just continues to produce. So he's just a very subtle guy, Frank is. And he's not flamboyant. He's just going to get those guys together and say, hey, this is how we do it. And obviously what he did with Carson Wentz and what he did with Nick Foles. And I think he's going to do a great job there.
How do you compare Andrew Luck to a lot of the great quarterbacks he's worked with? You mentioned Carson Wentz with Peyton Manning, even Jim Kelly, who he played behind.
Yeah.
How do you kind of compare Luck's tools to those guys?
Andrew Luck is almost the same. I mean, he's kind of like built like Jim, but obviously he's a little more mobile, just as smart, if not smarter. I think he's going to get the best out of him as he can. And again, in the NFL, the quarterback is the most important position. It's a quarterback-driven league, and if you don't have the quarterback calling those plays and you don't have the confidence, and Greg knows, no confidence in a quarterback, the offense doesn't go anywhere. So it's going to be important that he gets on the same page as Frank and they get on the same page together.
What I heard from Frank during the press conference was good. They were saying, well, you weren't the first choice, and he really answered it great. He was like, I've been through that before where I had to come off the bench and get it done. I don't have an issue with not being the first choice.
Yeah.
Just talk about his demeanor and like not being all caught up on that, about him having to be the star of the show.
He never was like that. And I think he played his role so good there in Buffalo that he knew, well, when it's my turn, I got to produce. And that's really how it is in the NFL. A lot of times these quarterbacks go down, and you got to have confidence in that second guy coming in. You guys were talking the last segment about Kirk Cousins. Where's he going to go? He's the number one guy wherever he's going to go, whether it be in Cleveland or wherever. But you got to have somebody behind him that can just pick up the slack if something goes wrong.
I think that's an interesting point you just made about making sure that he has somebody behind, because he was a behind the scenes guy. He was a second guy. And when you look at Andrew Luck, we talk about resurrecting his career. Andrew Luck is a player that is very exciting when healthy. I think when we say resurrecting his career, it's more predicated on his health, because there was nothing wrong with Andrew Luck's career when he was playing, other than the fact that I think what Coach Reich would do is eliminate his turnover ratio.
Because see, Greg, I was just about to say, before he got hurt, he was turning the ball over a lot.
Turnover ratio.
And that was the big thing.
But we were okay with that because he gave us so much greatness in the passing game, and even with his legs. I think that's the part that he's going to really help Andrew Luck with, is knowing when to take chances and when not to take chances. When you look at Carson Wentz in 2016, he had 14 interceptions. He was a rookie, but then coming up into this year, he cut those interceptions in half. So I think that's where he will be best suited.
Yeah, and as a quarterback, you got to pick your spots, and you got to know where to throw the ball. A lot of times, in defenses now, they're closing those gaps down, they're closing the zones down. You got to be able to know if that zone's open right away, hit it. If not, you got to take your second guy, take the third guy, check down. That's really the progression. So, and Andrew Luck has done that his whole career. And this, like you said, this health thing and with his shoulder, that's going to be big coming into training camp. Even if he throws or whatever's going to go on, that's the confidence that they both have to have in each other.
You mentioned Frank, when he was a player, you saw like he was like an offensive coordinator. You probably could see he'll be a good quarterbacks coach one day. Those are kind of what he's been. Now it's a different role as the head coach. What would you say to him as far as, okay, you're stepping into this different role versus what you've done already?
I think, he was in Philadelphia, and actually Doug Peterson, I was in Kansas City one year, and Doug Peterson was the quarterback coach under Andy Reich. So I think they worked together so well. I think that's why they did well, because they were quarterback coaches, same offenses maybe similar. But, Frank's going to he's not going to go over his head. And I think he's just one of those guys that just, here's the paper, this is what we're going to do. He's going to put elements in there that he's going to, where he thinks the offense is best at. Obviously, you got to run the football, but he's not going to try to protect anybody. If Andrew Luck is healthy enough to play, that's the guy. That's the guy that's going to do it.
We have an argument all the time about going to the Super Bowl or championship compared to winning. Yeah. We know what a great career you had. Obviously, you went to the Hall of Fame, all the other stuff. But you guys went 4 times. The Bills lost all 4. Would you rather have gone one time?
I get that question all the time.
And win 1 than go to 4 and never win?
You know what? I think after the first 5 years I was retired, I would rather have 1 to win, not go to 4. Now it's another, 50 years later?
That ain't that long.
Well,
but
it's a lot of years.
wanted to win, right?
Of course. I mean, come on. We're all competitors, and that's what you play the game for. You go to training camp, you do all that work, and to get to a Super Bowl and win a championship. That's really what it's about. And I would not do it over with any other guys than those guys in that locker room we had. Jim, Thurman, Bruce, Tasker, all those guys. Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame owner. You don't get it done and do what we did without that kind of nucleus around you. And Greg knows in Green Bay it was the same thing. Brett Favre, and you had all the coaches and all. You mold all that together, you get a winning franchise. You get a culture that you want. And that's, again, Frank is trying to change that culture. We'll try to change that culture there.
I think what Rob is kind of trying to slide in.
I know. I was not going to answer.
No, he's trying to slide in the whole LeBron.
I'm just saying.
I heard you.
Michael Jordan, I'd rather go to 6 and be 6-0.
Yeah.
Then LeBron has been to 8. You could go to 8, 9, 10. It's still about winning them. That's all I'm trying to say. I think people try to say, well, if he goes to 10, it doesn't matter how many you win. He still went to more championships.
Well,
I just think winning matters.
I don't think, but I think your Bills team, those were great teams.
Yeah.
And they get belittled because they didn't win one.
They don't get as much.
They
don't get as much credit.
We win 1 out of those 4. We're
totally
dynasty.
different.
Yeah.
We're a dynasty. We're like the Pack. We're like the Steelers. We're like the 49ers. We're like the Cowboys. But it just so happens we didn't win any of them. So, well, when they put all the greatest teams ever, the Bills are always, they were good, but they didn't win any. Now, I mean, to answer your question, I would be like, I'd rather go to 4 and not win 1.
And why?
Road than not win 1 at this point. But again,
and why is that? For the experience?
I think it just, Marv Levy was all about character and what that meant. I think all those years we went to those 4 straight Super Bowls, we built character every single year. And if you look at other players that were on those teams that went to other teams, that were on our team that went to other teams, they try to, the teams that they went to, they try to build character as they go to another team. And again, I would not trade that for anything.
Andre, thank you for being with us. Appreciate it. You're a great guest. By the way, did you just get a manicure?
Yeah.
Because they're nice and
you know
shiny.
what? I'm a Metro. I can't.
I know it. I knew it.
I got to look good on TV. I got to look good.
I knew it. No cuticles, nice and shiny. You're looking good.
Good job, man.
All right. Are the first place Rockets the biggest threat to take down the Warriors? We'll debate that coming up next. Stick it right here.